Hey, it's Rebecca, and you are listening to Resilient by Design. Today I interview, oh my goodness, Nikki Rausch. She has this phenomenal ability to talk about sales. Designers, you are going to love this episode, and I'm not just saying that. I know I say that with a lot of my episodes, but please get your pens and paper ready. I had so many ahas in this interview, so many takeaways. I'm even going to update my own discovery call script. Don't worry, I will update it. And so when you download it for free, you can also get it. But holy heck, Nikki has 25 years of selling experience, and she knows what sells and how to sell successfully and authentically. She's written 3 books that are all available on Amazon. She has a podcast called Sales Maven, and you can find it wherever you listen to this podcast. She has a free ebook that she shares with our listeners, and she shares some really tangible, specific advice to interior designers on how to level up, make the sale, and just tweak your conversations with clients. So I think you guys are really going to enjoy this episode. All right. I'm Rebecca Hay, and I've built a successful interior design business by trial and error, podcasts, online courses, and so many freaking books. Over the last decade, I've grown from an insecure student to having false starts to careers, and now I'm finally in the place where I want to be. Throughout my journey, it's been pretty obvious that I'm passionate about business and helping other entrepreneurs do the same. Each week, I'll share tangible takeaways from my own experience and the experiences of other badass women to help you build your confidence and change your business. Welcome to Resilient by Design, Nikki. I'm excited to have you.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here with you.
Why don't we just quickly give a summary, not a summary. Why don't you introduce yourself to my audience in your own words?
Thank you. So I'm Nikki Rausch. My company is Sales Maven. I'm the CEO. And I specialize in teaching people how to have more effective sales conversations. My background is in corporate technology sales, and I have a pretty extensive background also in neuro-linguistic programming, if that's a new term to anybody listening. It's essentially the study of communication. And I found that I could pick and choose the things that I learned in NLP and that I was able to apply in my sales career, and the things that worked really well for me in my sales career. And now I teach people how to have more effective sales conversations. So that's me.
Ugh, I love it. I'm so excited because we were just chatting offline, but about this idea of sales and how I see a lot of creatives, and including myself in the past, have really struggled with this idea of being salesy. There's I don't know, what is it about that connotation that we don't, is it that when you're selling, I have this theory that when you're selling a service or an art that you offer, it feels hard because it feels like you're self-promoting. Mm-hmm. Whereas if I was selling a toothpaste, I could be like, you got to buy this toothpaste. It has this benefit, that benefit, that benefit. It's a no-brainer. Whereas when it's like, I can make your home beautiful, or I can stage this house for sale, it feels very personal. Yeah. And I know as creatives, most creatives struggle with tooting their own horn, I like to call it. And so I get this question all the time, like, how do I get more clients, or how do I convert more leads without sounding salesy or pushy? And it makes me feel uncomfortable, and I feel awkward, and I don't think I'm doing it right. And I think they can see through me. Like, do you get that comment a lot from people?
Oh, yeah. With? Those are my perfect ideal clients, honestly, because they're struggling with that piece of them that with just some little adjustments to how they're thinking about sales and how they're talking in their sales conversations, it can completely shift that for them. It will reframe for them, and it'll make it easier for the person who's on the other side. So I'll say a couple things. One of the biggest misconceptions with people who are uncomfortable with selling is they think that sales, because they've either been on the receiving end of this, or they've had somebody who, has taught them that sales is something that you do to another person. And that's why it feels gross and manipulative and salesy. But sales actually, when done well, is what you do with somebody. So it's more of a collaboration. And so when you start to approach sales is your job in a sales conversation is not to convince people to hire you. It's not to focus on their pain points and try to make them feel so bad about themselves that they have to hire you. That's all that like gross sales baloney is what I'll call it out there. And really what sales truly is your job is to understand what's going on for this person that you're in a conversation with. Do they have a need or a want? And do you have a solution that will meet that need or want? And do you have their permission to put that need or that solution in front of them? And then you treat them like they're an adult, because they are, and they get to now decide whether or not they would like your solution to solve their problem or meet their need or want. That's really what a sales conversation is. And when you start looking at it from this perspective of, hey, if I'm having a conversation with somebody and they're not a good fit for what I do, I can bless and release them. And I don't have to take it personally that they're not the right fit for my business. They don't have to take it personally that I'm going to choose to not quote them on this or put together a proposal for them. And if they choose to go in another direction, you shouldn't take it personally either. And so when you get so caught up in the like, oh my gosh, I've done something wrong. They're not going to hire me. They're going to choose somebody else. Sometimes it's just the timing's not right, or maybe you didn't present the solution in a way that kind of helped them meet that need or that want. And so it's just learning how to be better, learning how to be more effective, and learning how to approach sales in this with attitude. Like, this is something we're going to do together, you and me.
I love that. I wrote that down. I was like taking notes while you're talking. I love when I get to interview a guest who's like such vast knowledge on a specific topic. I'm like, yes, writing that down. That sales is, we believe that sales is something we do to someone, but it's actually something we do with them. I think that's really interesting, because there is that feeling of like, oh, like you're doing it to them, like you're at them, or you're in their face, or I'm like wincing. If you can't see my face, I'm like wincing as I say it, because I can feel it. Like I'm feeling those emotions. Yeah. It's so interesting. And in a minute, I want to talk about discovery calls specifically, because that's something that I have a script actually that I share with designers to help guide them through discovery calls. So I'm interested to sort of get your take on it and like maybe take that to the next level. But before we get there, there's one area that let's start at the top. Like when people first come in contact with you as a service provider, as a designer, there is that what I see designers doing a lot, and I'm interested in your take on this, is look at what I can do. It's amazing. Look at me. Look at those window treatments. Look at this kitchen. I did this. Here's a testimonial. Like, hire us because we're so great. But then they don't ask for the sale. Right. Yeah. So there's like a marketing thing. There's no call to action. And what I get designers asking all the time inside our community is, well, how do I ask for that sale before I've even had that call? How do I get them into my realm without sounding and acting sleazy? And what I'm hearing from you is perhaps we're taking it so personally, and it's not so personal. It's about the solution that you're offering, and just saying, hey, we have a consultation, or hey, let's have a discovery call. Like, how do we get over that? I guess it's more of a mind hurdle than anything else, to just initiate that conversation before we even get to having a call with a potential lead.
Yeah. So it's about issuing invitations. So if you're not issuing invitations, people aren't going to sign up for a consultation call with you. And so this kind of goes back to what I was saying here, of that people think that sales is something that you do to people. And one of the really common mistakes out there, and this is across the board, it doesn't matter what you do, what you sell, whether you sell or don't sell. We in our society have a really bad habit of talking at people. We get talked at all the time. We get talked at from the news, social media. Most of the people, you go to lunch with somebody and you feel like you leave and you're like, they didn't ask me one question. They just talked at me the whole time. I felt like I was just there to listen, right? Like we've all experienced that. And because we see it done to us all the time, we think that's how we're supposed to do it to everybody else. But if you want to stand out from everybody else, stop talking at people and start talking with them. And one of the ways that you learn how to talk with people is you ask questions, So instead of showing up and being like, look at me, look how amazing I am. Look at this window treatment. Look at this other thing that I did. Look at this. You should schedule a call with me. That's me talking at you the whole time. But if I show up in a conversation and I say, are window treatments something that are important to you? Would it be helpful if I showed you some examples? Are you interested in having a discovery call? Should we schedule that? Those are all questions. And when you ask questions, our brains love questions. Our brains are like Google. If you go to Google right now, doesn't matter what you type in, Google is already trying to answer your question. And our brains are the same way. Unfortunately, most of us aren't ever asking people questions. We're just making statement after statement after statement. If you want people to engage with you, start asking questions. It will absolutely change the interactions that you have.
Oh, I love that. It's so good, Nikki. Like, that's so true. Even just hearing you ask me those questions, I'm like, I don't feel like confronted that I have to buy from you. Like, just hearing you ask those questions, like, is it something that's important to you? Would you like to book a discovery call? It puts the power almost into the client or the would-be client's hands. It's like the ball's in your court.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and so in sales, just to kind of hit this point a little bit harder, I truly do think that you have to have a balance of power in the conversation. So you as the designer shouldn't hold all the power, because that will make your client feel less than. And frankly, they'll probably go find somebody who they don't feel less than around. But at the flip side of that, they can't hold all the power over you in the conversation, because unfortunately, as humans, we tend to abuse power. And so if we hold all the power over the designer as the client, we won't value your opinion. We won't take you as serious. We'll take you for granted. So there needs to be a balance of power. So in a sales conversation, to balance power, you're going to ask questions. And you're also going to stand in your place of authority, and you're going to be okay with making recommendations. You're going to be okay with redirecting the conversation if it needs to be. And you're going to ask permission to ask questions, because here's the little secret that most people don't know. The person who asks the questions in a conversation holds the power.
Ooh, I like that.
Most people think, well, if I'm asking questions, that means I don't know things. Well, you don't know things. Your client, you got to get what they know, because what's most interesting to them, it's more interesting than any of your work. It's more interesting of any of your experience, any of the things that you know. What's most interesting to your client is what they need and what they want. That is the most interesting thing to them. And the only way for you to uncover that is to ask them questions, because sometimes they don't even know yet what they need. They don't even know yet what they want. They'll only get there by being asked questions.
I love that. It's funny. It makes me think about, what is it? One of those old adages they say, if you're in a negotiation, you don't want to be the first person to put out a number, because now you've shown your hand. Right? Similar concept. Except you want to be the one asking the questions, because that you actually have the upper hand in a way. I love that. I never really thought of it that way. So let's talk a little bit more about this. Like, okay, so designer listening is thinking, okay, well, this is an interesting concept. I need to ask questions. Mm-hmm. But how does asking questions and learning about the client get you to selling them on your service?
I love this question. It is about framing your questions in a way that starts to plant seeds for the person you're in conversation with. What you want to do through your questions is, yes, you do need to get some information in order to earn their business. And through your questions, you can plant some seeds that allows for them to start to go, oh my gosh, Rebecca knows some things that I didn't know. She's asking me such great questions. And people who ask really good questions are seen as smart. They're seen as knowing things. They've got some knowledge, right? So you want to ask very strategic questions. One of the big, I keep saying mistakes, like there are a lot of mistakes in the sales process, but there are a lot of things to do well. So I'm going to give you the what to do well, is that we ask a lot of questions in a discovery that we actually don't need the answers to until the person has hired us. So you spend too much time overwhelming people by asking them a lot of questions. I get this actually because I've worked with quite a few interior designers. One of the things I find a lot of times, and Rebecca, please, if I'm saying something that you're like, well, I advise that. I'm not bashing any. So I'm just going to give you
I'm
my
also a work in progress. Everyone here knows that. I'm just sharing what's worked for me. And as I learn, I will update how I do things.
Okay. So one of the things that I've seen with interior designers is a lot of times they'll have these ginormous intake forms that they want somebody to fill out before they go into a discovery call with them. And these intake forms, a lot of times, are asking questions that really you only need the answers to once the person hires you. What we need to do is be able to engage with that person and start to build relationship. Intake forms do not build relationship. So we want to get to that discovery call. We want to ask really smart questions in the discovery call for them to start to identify, oh my gosh, I think I just found my designer. Rebecca's going to be the person for me. Because you ask great questions. Now, once we agree on you're going to put together a proposal and we've reviewed it and they agree to hire you, now that's where the big intake form can come in. That's where we can get down into the nitty gritty. But asking what colors they love and, the best vacation they've ever been on and what did they love about that vacation? I've seen all these in interior designer forms. You don't need the answers to that in a discovery call. That is a absolute wasted opportunity.
So true. And that we don't ask those questions in our intake form.
Okay, good.
But I have seen, dodged a bullet, not in trouble. But I have seen others do it. And I've seen it and I've thought, more in the past when I was trying to build out and I didn't know what I was doing. And I saw people do that. And I thought, oh, that's super clever. Maybe I should do that.
Please don't.
Then those are the types of questions. I don't ask about the vacation one, but like what any of those personal design questions, you're right. Those are things we ask once they've hired us. We're with them in their home. And we are starting our design because it's relevant then.
Because they've agreed to pay you money for your expertise. Now we need that information about colors, design, the things that spark joy for them, all these things. Yes, we need that then. In the discovery call, what we need to understand is what's important to them about the designer they're going to choose. What's important to them about this project they're working on. Those are the questions that we need answered because all we're trying to do in the discovery call is identify, am I talking to an ideal client? And if so, do I have a solution or can I create a solution for them that's going to, solve the problem, meet the need? Or am I talking to somebody who's not a good fit for my business? So I can quickly bless and release this person. So I'm not wasting time, theirs or mine.
And that's through the question. So I'm just curious if I'm doing it right. So in the discovery calls, and I have a script, which I might have to tweak my script for designers once we've had this conversation, we'll see. I always lead with, tell me about your project. Is that too broad of a question or is that a good starting place?
Well, the first question that I would recommend, I like the question. I like the question about tell me about your project, but I would change that question and I would say, what's important to you about this project? Because tell me about the project is pretty vague and you might get a lot of story. And story is super interesting, but it's also a big time suck.
Totally. I get a lot of stories sometimes like, well, and then we moved to that house and then this and then this. And now we think we want to do it and blah, blah, blah. Now the kids and oh my gosh.
Yeah. And then you're like, how do I get this back on track? How do I get this back on track? We only have 20 more minutes. They're still in story. What's going on? So I would say what's important to you about this project? Because it helps narrow the things that they're going to tell you. Because here's the thing, the way that you earn somebody's business is by meeting the things that are important to them. So what we're looking for in those questions is what are their key phrases? What are their key words that they're using? Because when I deliver back my proposal, I'm going to make sure that I incorporate those key phrases and words into the proposal and show how this proposal meets what's important to them so that they can make a smart decision about who they hire. What criteria will you be using for the designer you select if you know you're in a competitive situation? That's a question I find most designers never think to ask. And yet because most designers don't think to ask it, your competitors didn't ask that question, but because you asked that question, you help them right there in the moment because they might not even know yet what their criteria is. But if you ask that question, their brain will want to give them an answer. And now they can start to say what their criteria truly is. Now you can go, am I talking to a potential ideal client, or is this not a good fit for me? So it's all about asking really smart questions, and it will absolutely change. You won't take as much time. You won't need as much time, frankly, in that conversation. So you can tighten up your discovery calls, and you'll get to this place where you actually get to ask for their business quicker, and not in a like rushed way, but in a really easy way for the prospect, for them, because it should feel easy for them, and it also should feel easy for you.
So you're asking these questions in this intake call, this discovery call. Mm-hmm. So how do you then transition, and I'm just going to call it this, I don't know what else to call it, to the sell? Like, how do you go from, okay, these are great questions, it's starting to plant the seed that, oh, wow, like Rebecca's asking some really good questions. She must like really know her stuff. She really understands the importance of a designer because she's asking about the criteria. She really cares about the outcome of our project because she wants to know what's most important about it. Like, these are really good questions, by the way, Nikki. I'm like, oh my God, don't forget these. Everyone who's listening, write that down. But then, so you're asking these and other questions. And then you're like, okay, this client sounds amazing. How do I get them to book, let's say your next step, as it is for me and a lot of designers, to book a paid consultation?
Yeah. So you're going to ask permission. And so I'm going to give you some language. Now you can tweak this as much as you want that fits for you, but this is just to give, I always say, like, I like to give some boundaries and some, like, I'll give you some language suggestion so that you can tweak it and make it your own. But this is what I would say. I would say, Rebecca, after chatting with you, I do get some ideas of some ways that we could work together. Would you be interested in hearing about those? So I'm asking permission. I'm not going into sales mode. I'm not like, oh my gosh, Rebecca, based on what you said, you would be a total ideal client for me. And we could do this together and we could do this together. And the next thing you should do is book my paid consultation call, right? That feels salesy. But if I say, I've got some ideas of some ways we could work together, would you be interested to hear about those? Now they're going to say yes. Who's going to say no to that question? They're going to be like, tell me more, Rebecca, I can't wait, right? So you ask the question, you wait, you let them answer. Then you say, the next logical step based on what you have shared is this paid consultation call. And here are all the great things that you're going to get in this consultation. And then you lay out what it is, right? And then you say, should we go ahead and get that scheduled? That's me asking for your business now. I lay out my offer really clearly, what the next step is, and then I invite them to book it right then.
So I'm going to tell you what I think designers are thinking right now.
Okay.
Is that sounds scary because, I mean, it sounds amazing. Don't get me wrong.
Okay.
But I think that, and myself included, designers or creatives tend to have a habit of filling in that empty space. So asking a question and then waiting, it sounds so silly hearing myself say that out loud, but that was my gut reaction was like, oh boy, okay, I got to try that. But that's kind of scary because we have this tendency to want to fill the silence or fill the void. Yeah. It's that idea of let me ask the question. And I love that you said that, like, you have to, and like, wait for the response. Yeah. Don't try to respond for them.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you brought this up because silence is an advanced selling skill and it's hard. It's so hard for many of us that struggle with like, I don't want to be seen as pushy. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. And let me give you a reframe as to why it's so important. It's more important not for you to earn the business. I mean, it will help you earn the business, but it's more important for the person you're in conversation with. They don't know what you know, and they need time to process. They're hearing for the first time whatever your solution is that you just laid out for them. They need some time to process. Be patient with them. Give them a little bit of time and space. I one time had somebody ask me, actually on a podcast, and it's one of my favorite moments of all time. She said, Nikki, I don't know how to be quiet. How do you be quiet and how do you wait? Because I always say, and wait, zip it and wait. She's like, how do you do that? I said, you put your lips together and you press. And she like burst out laughing. And it was like one of my favorite moments. She's one of my like idols, somebody I absolutely adore. And so the fact that I made her laugh by, you put your lips together and you press. And I mean that sincerely, like it was an honest answer. She thought I was being funny, which I love, but it's true. Like be patient and wait. Let them process what you've just said and see what they say next. If you keep talking, you muddy the waters. You get their brain like going this way and that way and this way. And a muddied brain won't make a decision. They can't. They're overwhelmed now. So be patient. Give them that time and space that they deserve to make a decision.
So this has really got me thinking about, first of all, I'm loving everything you're saying. I'm like eating it all up, but it's really got me thinking about the presentation. I don't know. I'm like, okay, yes, discovery call. Yes. And things that you're saying. And I'm thinking about the few things that I've learned, but that how presentation, like when I say presentation, I mean, when you're presenting your designs, when you're selling the project, right? This is the design. This is the price. These are the construction drawings. These are the fabrics, the whole 9 yards. One thing that I learned accidentally, I guess, from my operations manager years ago, who had worked for an architectural firm, she was like, Rebecca, you're overwhelming your clients by giving them way too much for them to process, in the sense of I was walking them through the detailed AutoCAD drawings, the package. I was walking them through, this is the fabric and here's why we chose it. And then this is the metal that matches the fabric. And you can see how and I was explaining my entire design process in a way of how I came up with the decision. And she said to me, they don't want that. They just want to see it. And then they want to ask questions. And I thought, at first I resisted, of course, as any human would. Like, I worked really hard, blah, 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 blah. But the presentations were long. And my clients would always leave our studio like a deer in headlights. And my husband, who I shared the office with, would say to me at the end of the day, like, whoa, you really, sent your clients to the ringer. Like, I saw their faces when they left. And I would think, oh, I thought it went really well. I think they were really happy. You don't know what you're talking about. But then over time, I started to realize it was too much. Yeah. And now when I try to bring my senior designers in to help me present, I see them sometimes doing those. You just keep filling the space with talking. And the client is just, it's so interesting. I'm thinking out loud here, but that idea of holding your lips together and waiting and holding that silence to let the client process the living room you just presented them before moving into the bathroom. Do you want to maybe talk a little bit about that? Like the discovery call just kind of got me thinking about this in person. I would imagine you follow the same principles of the in-person sales. Do you have any tips for designers who are doing that and they're selling? I don't know, this might be going a little bit too in the deep end, so you tell me, but do we present the numbers with everything, or do we hold that back? And like, there's so many ways to present a design. And I'm just curious your sort of thoughts on techniques or ways to improve that in-person presentation, but selling skills.
Yeah. I think this is a super smart question. And I think it's one that a lot of people don't think about because we think, well, this is my style. My style is to educate. Anytime somebody says they want to educate their clients, they are an ideal client for me. They definitely need help with selling skills because this whole idea of like, I want to educate people. Most people don't want to be educated in what it is that you do. And that is not me slamming you in any way. And that's not diminishing what you bring to the table. It's that if they wanted to be educated in it, they would have gone and got a degree in it. What they want is the solution that your education provides. And you have to sell solution. Now, I once worked with a woman she was such an educator. She loved to educate people. And when you would go in and have a meeting with her, she would bury people in information. It would just be like fire hose, which by the way, I can sometimes get into this mode too, because I love sales. I love strategy around sales. I love sales conversation. And I can literally talk for days and days and days about selling technique, about communication skills, about creating curiosity, like so many things, but I can fire hose people with it. So in the selling process, if you fire hose people with information, educating, and I'm putting that in quotes, then you are overwhelming their brain. Let the person who wants that deeper dive information, let them ask you questions. So you present your concept, and you need to present it probably slower than you think, because they're looking at it and seeing it for the first time. You've been working on it. You know it in and out. You know all that you know about it. But they don't know this. They're seeing it for the very first time. So roll it out like it matters. Let it unfold like a beautifully told story, right? And then if they want more information, give them an opportunity to ask. Now, I'm going to give you a question that you can ask that will allow people to ask for more detail. And this question is, there's no context to the question that I'm about to share with you. It is my favorite question to use in a demonstration, in a presentation. Okay. And I'll tell you why once I give you the question. The question is, how are we doing so far? Now, there's no context to the question, how are we doing so far? What it will do, though, is it'll give the person who's hearing the question, they will add the context and they will answer it based on what their brain is thinking about. So if you say, how are we doing so far? And they say, well, explain to me how you came up with, these handles for these drawer pulls for this, with this color. Well, then you can go into detail about that. But if they say, we're doing really good, we still have about 15 minutes, they know that now they're thinking about time. Now, know, like, this is what we need to pay attention to, because this is where they're focused on, like, are we going to finish on time, right? Or if they say, we're doing really good, I'm super excited about it, keep going, they're ready for the next piece, right? Now, you don't ask that question like over and over and over again in the discovery, but in the presentation. And you can ask it 2 or 3 times, depending on how much. So instead of, and you can also say, here's another one. What questions come to mind so far? Wait.
Ooh, I like that.
See what they say next. What questions come to mind so far is so much smarter than saying, do you have questions? Most of us, when you ask us really common, like, do you have any questions? That everybody asks that. And a lot of people have knee-jerk responses. It's kind of like if you say to somebody, how are you? A lot of people have like a common response. Yeah. We don't want the common response. We want the real response. So when you say, what questions come to mind so far?
Oh my God, Nikki, that's like all I've done my entire life is, do you have any questions about do you have any questions?
Yeah. Everybody asks that. You're going to sound different when you start using this question that I just gave you.
Oh my gosh, why don't they teach this to us in school? It's so gold.
I think it's just because now I get to, and it's the best job in the whole world.
You're happy they don't teach it. It's like, you get to do it. Oh my goodness. Okay. This is so helpful. How are we doing so far?
We're doing so good.
Oh my God, I love it. I think that the designers who are listening right now, I know that they are like having these mind-blowing emojis happen, because I'm having it and I've been doing this for a little while now. So I think the designers who are latching onto this advice and they're early in their career are just going to take it and fly. For some of us, it's going to be harder to remember to like make changes, right? Because you get kind of set in the ways that you do things. And it's like, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it mentality. But I would imagine that all you need to do is start to implement a little bit of these techniques and you'll start to see a real difference. And what I'm imagining happens, because I can't say from experience yet, is that you feel more confident as the person selling. You feel more at ease.
My goal in life is to help people more confidently sell so that they can make a bigger impact in the lives of their clients, in their own personal life, in their business, in their communities, in their families. And the more comfortable you get with your sales conversation, the easier selling becomes, not just for you, but also for your buyer. And then it's like a fun part of the business, because earning new business is exciting and fun.
Totally. And I'm just going to throw this in here because we're at an interesting time in the world. And so I actually really was excited to have this conversation with you because I know from being inside, literally just last week inside our designers room community, which is our membership for designers, that there are a lot of designers who are nervous about the economy.
Mm-hmm.
They are nervous. The leads are not coming in the way they did 2021 into 2022. It has slowed down. I have seen it from my design business. Most of my design friends are seeing it too. Some clients are canceling projects altogether.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a little bit of that fear. And so I think what better time than to really pay attention to how you're selling and offering your service and asking for permission to share how you can solve problems. Like this is the time to hone in on those skills and improve them.
Yes.
Because this is when you always want to be selling and converting those leads into clients, but I feel like when things slow down, it is such an opportunity to also bring in the right projects and bring in those clients because let's focus in. If you're only getting a couple of leads, let's make sure you're having those good discovery calls. You're optimizing them. You're having those qualified conversations. When you get to the presentation, you want to make sure you can sell the whole design. The client doesn't want to pull back or change things. So these are really, I think right now, especially, and I don't know what your thoughts are on economy and sales, but it does seem like an opportunity time.
It is an opportunity time because a lot of people will pull back, including your competitors, right? So this is the time to lean in. It's the time to lean into your own skill set because investing in yourself will always pay off. So investing in learning how to make the selling process more effective will pay dividends for you in the immediate, right? So that you close those leads and long-term future because you'll just get better and better. It's like a muscle. You just continue to build it and build it and build it. You get stronger and stronger. And one of the things I love to work with clients on, and I think it's really relevant right now with what's going on, is we have to learn how to increase lifetime value of clients. And we have to learn how to increase lifetime value of offers. And so that's one of the things. I mean, that's probably a whole different conversation, but I just want to comment on that because you've got to get the client in the door in order to earn the next piece of their business and the next piece of their business and the next piece of their business. And that's how you increase lifetime value of a client. So whereas maybe in the past you were selling a $10,000, $20,000 project, if you could earn that client's business and over the course of the next 2, 3, 5 years, that turns into a $100,000 client, that will significantly impact your overall business. And that is something that we all should be paying attention to right now. Increasing lifetime value of clients, increasing lifetime value of offers.
Yeah, I love that. We just did was it a podcast? We just talked about this recently. The idea, and I think this touches on what you're talking about, is this idea of, what can you maybe start to offer to your existing or past clients that is an extension of what you do. It's not competing with your core offering. So you don't want to dizzy them with options, but how can you meet them? For example, you've just finished, a full service design, but you didn't get a chance to tackle the art because they just wanted everything done first. Can you step up and say, hey, we'd love to help you with art consultation. And here's what we can offer as an extension to keep them coming to you. Is it a concierge service? Like those are more additional once the project is done. But I think that is just this or maybe the tip of the iceberg. We're thinking about how else can you serve that client?
Yeah.
Because maybe there aren't a lot of new clients knocking on your door.
Yeah. And there's a lot of things that go into this. One of the things that I think a lot of times people don't think about is creating offers that make it really easy for people to select, so we lay out options for them and making sure that they're selecting the great option. And there are ways to do that. Again, that's a whole nother conversation.
Can we just talk a little bit about that though?
Yeah.
This idea of options, because I think it's really, designers are trying to figure out, okay, Siri keeps thinking, I don't know. When Siri pops up, I think maybe you can't hear me. I don't know what happens. She's just taking over the screen.
I didn't hear her.
Okay. I need to find a way to shut her down. Because it is something that designers that I know of sometimes struggle with. Do I want to offer, an a la carte menu? How many options are good to offer? Should I just have one option? I'm curious, what your perspective is when it comes to options with service offerings.
So I love to give people up to 3 options, never more than 3, because that will overwhelm them. And here's one of the key ways to sell your higher priced offers is you have to lay it out in what's known as top-down selling. Too often people start with the least expensive option, and then they talk about, then for a little bit more money, you could get this, this, and this. And for even more money, you can get this, this, and this. Well, to the buyer, that just feels like they're just trying to get money out of me. Like, I don't want to spend more money to get more. But if you lay it out the other way and you go top down and you say, the full meal deal, this package, it gets you all of these things. Now I have a middle tier package and you could get these things, you give up these other things. And then just for the basic package, it's this. Okay. People don't like to have things taken away. We start to form attachments to things. So if you lay it out top down, you're much more likely for them to pick either your top tier or your middle tier than for them to pick the basic model. And I know this from so much experience of working with clients that when I can get them to relay out their offers in a different way with top-down selling, they come back and they're like, I am no longer selling the basic package. That's because you're laying it out better. You're allowing for them to make a smarter decision for themselves. Now, is it going to happen every single time? No. Is it going to happen way more than you think? Yep. Top-down selling is so crucial to the conversation. And again, it's like a fear thing, I think, of like, I don't know, they're going to think it's so much money. Stop selling from somebody else's wallet. That's not your job. And frankly, it's not your business. And I mean that with kindness, but I didn't sound very kind when I said it. But
that's okay. I do tough love here sometimes.
It truly is not your business. Your job is to be the expert and recommend what somebody needs, not what you think they'll pay or what you think they can afford. Give them the option that gives them everything that's going to meet all their needs. Now, don't sell them $100,000 to put $100,000 project in front of them when they have clearly said to you, 25,000 is our max. That's unrealistic, right? So be realistic about it, but show them, for 30, you could get all these things. You'd be surprised how many times people go, well, I can come up with another $5,000 to get this full meal deal from you. So let them make that smart decision for themselves. Don't decide for somebody else. So top-down selling is absolutely essential.
I love that. So it's not like, here's all the things you can pick from A, B, and C.
No. A, B, and C, you pick. That's like, it's like going into a store and going, I don't know how to put design together. They're coming to you because you know how to put the design together. You're the one. Don't take me into this huge store and say, Nikki, pick out the curtains and the fabrics that you like. I would be so overwhelmed by that, or the paint color. Like, please, no. But if you come to me and say, in this package, we are gonna select your paint, your fabrics, your this, your that, your this, and we're going to make those decisions minimal for you so that you pick the best decisions for you and you're not overwhelmed with 30 choices of different shades of gray, right? No. Your job is to be the expert. So recommend what's going to be the best solution for them.
So interesting hearing you say that, because I have, from time to time, designers say to me, well, how do you convince clients to hire you for full service, like including implementation? Like, I really struggle with selling my clients. Someone just said this to me the other day. A friend of mine in Toronto is like, how do you convince your clients to sign on for implementation? And I'm like, I don't know. How do I do it? They just all want it. And I think unintentionally, what I'm doing in some version, probably not in the perfect Nikki version, I'd like to hone in on these techniques, but is I present the full service design first. I talk about most of our 99% of our projects, our clients want this.
Yes.
But if you don't want the implementation, we could do just the consultation. I mean, I don't think I say it just this way. I'm sure there's a better way, but we could do, I guess the middle package for me would be the consultation and the design, right? Then you've got the full design package. You can take it, you can implement it yourself, but we won't be there, showing up on site, answering questions, implementing, ordering, and all the jazz. And then the baseline would be, or the base package, I guess, if you will, would be the consultation only. It's someone who just wants to do it all themselves. They want expert advice. It's 2 hours of my time. And without realizing it, because I've structured my design process into 3 phases, in theory, you could do all 3, which would be top line. Or you could do the first 2, which is the middle. And then the consultation would be the lower end.
That's right. So you just laid it out so beautifully. Now, the only other piece, and you probably are already doing this, but I'll just add it for the audience, is you say, now of those 3, which do you prefer?
No, I don't say that. That's good. I should say that.
I want you to say that. That's the close. That's the close language. That is essentially saying to the brain, go ahead, make a decision now. Go ahead. It's time.
Yeah. So you're, and in some ways too, like you are planting that seed that they're hiring you knowing that they want the full meal deal, even though they're not paying for that 3rd phase for several months. But when it comes time, they're ready to go because they know that that's what, even though we haven't even technically signed a contract for the 3rd phase, it's a no-brainer. It's very, very, very uncommon that someone would say, I'm not going to implement with you. And I realize maybe that's because we've planted that seed and they've made that mental choice early on. Should I get them to sign a contract for that 3rd phase? That's another question I've had designers ask. I don't, but maybe I need to lock them in.
I mean, there's no reason not to at least offer that. And again, here's the thing is, so I want to comment, your friend who said, how do I get people to, how do I convince them for the implementation? So it's a little bit of like it's a wrong mindset because her job is not to convince really. And when you're in convince mode, it feels awkward and weird and manipulative. And so that's probably why she's not doing it well, is because she thinks she's supposed to convince people, right? Or he or she. I don't know that you said if it was a he or she, but so instead, it's your job is to just lay out the best solution for them and let them choose which is the best solution. Now, one of the things that you want to always do in any relationship, frankly, but definitely in the sales relationship, that client relationship, is you want to create safety for the other person. Your job, part of your job to earn somebody's business is to create safety. Now, I don't mean like, make sure you have your hard hat when we go into walk the job site. I don't mean that kind of safety. I mean safety in like, I'm in good hands. Rebecca's going to take really good care of me. One of the ways that you can create safety is for somebody to know everything is going to be taken care of. All 3 phases done. Rebecca's going to be here. She's going to guide me all 3 phases. And I don't have to stress about implementation when it gets there because she's going to take care of it. So there's no reason for you not to let them sign on for all 3 if they want to right now. Because now they're secure knowing, done, taken care of. One less decision I have to make, because when it comes to implementation, I already know Rebecca's going to be there. We're not going to have to renegotiate. Maybe she's going to get too busy. Maybe she doesn't want to take my project. Nope, she's going to be with me because we have an agreement. So it creates safety.
Yeah, that's interesting. And that would be for us, the high end offering. Cause I know, you talk about that. Like, why should you have a high end? Do people need a high end offering?
Yes.
That's the other question.
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay,
you absolutely should have a high end offering. You should absolutely have something that is the premier, is the premium, is your diamond level, is your whatever you want to call it. Okay. You absolutely should have that. And you should lay that option out first where they get everything. Now, be careful, because sometimes when I say this to clients, then they create something, but they don't price it right. And then they're like, oh my gosh, somebody picked that and I have to deliver it. Oh no. Yeah. So there should be no buyer's remorse or seller's remorse either. Right. So, but you do want to have a top tier package. Because then when you lay out your top tier, your middle tier, and your bottom tier, then people again are more likely to pick either your top tier or your middle tier. And just to be really clear about this, your middle tier should be the thing that you most want to sell. So if you most want to sell your top tier, then you need to create a tier above it.
Interesting.
And that's something I work with clients on that a lot. As a matter of fact, I just did this with a client the other day where she was like, I don't know what would be in my top tier. And so actually I do it with a lot of clients, but the other day I did it with a client. And so she was like, I think this is my top tier, but she said to me, this is what I most want to sell. So we created another tier above it. And she was like, she was like, within 2 weeks, I brought in another $5,500 in sales just in 2 weeks that I hadn't ever, like, that wasn't even an offer 2 weeks ago. So that was over in addition to what people were already paying. So increasing lifetime value of a client, increasing lifetime value of an offer, $5,500 in 2 weeks. Imagine what that's going to be like in a year for her, in 5 years from now, 10 years from now in her business, to be able to have that higher tier and to allow people to make a better choice for themselves when they're picking.
That's my brain is like spinning right now as you're talking.
Okay, good.
I'm like, oh my gosh. Because I keep thinking, and this is more personal for me because we have an online course. And so we only ever offer one price point. This is the course. It's a live launch. It's coming up actually in March. And it's like, join us. It's a live, full immersive experience. And it's one price. There's payment plans as an option, but we did one time in the past where we did 2 tiers. We did like a standard, independent study, right? So you don't have access to the live calls. And then but I never did a 3rd tier. And I'm always curious. I don't see it happening in the online space, and there might be a reason for it. But you've got me thinking about the possibility of maybe there are people that would want more. Right?
It's not a maybe. It is a for sure. There are people in your course right now who want more from you. It's your job to offer it. Because here's the thing. We often forget, because, we're busy. We've got a lot of things on our plate and we're just trying to lay things out, make it super easy for people. Now, you want to be careful in an online space when you're making an offer, because again, if you give people a bunch of options, you'll overwhelm. Confusing. And so there's ways to do this. There's ways that, again, this would be something you and I could work on in a private session, but there's absolutely ways for you to put kind of another offer in front of them and do it in a really seamless way that allows those few people. Let's say, if you think about what your launch is, if you could add 10% to your launch and not really have to change much of what you were doing, that would probably be a significant amount of revenue for you. And there are probably at least 10% who would take it.
Yeah. No, this has been such a great conversation. It's so eye-opening to just, it's like the psychology behind it, the questions that you ask, the space that you give people, the positioning, the options. Like this has been such an incredible conversation. I know that my audience is going to love this episode. For the sake of time, because I feel like there's so many more questions I want to ask you. So we can do that offline. What would you say is a last nugget of wisdom that maybe we touched on, maybe we didn't, that you think would be super beneficial for the listeners today?
Okay, so for designers in particular, one of the nuggets that I want to give, and we did touch on this briefly, but I want to kind of hammer it home a little bit harder, is that once you have laid out your proposal or your offer, your job then is to ask for the sale. And do not be afraid to ask for the sale. If you're not asking, which by the way, most people aren't asking, they lay out the offer or they send over a proposal and then they're like, I guess I should follow up with this person sometime later. No.
Yep.
So I'm going to tweak this now just based on what I just said, because I think a lot of designers send over proposals without having a circle back call scheduled.
Right.
Do not send a proposal to somebody without having scheduled a time to review that proposal so that you can answer any last questions and you can ask for the business. If you are missing this step, you are leaving money on the table and you are slowing down the sales process in earning this person's business, and you're risking losing their business.
I'm just going to say, because I've been guilty of that. I don't know what others who are listening think or believe, because I know most of us do this. We send out a proposal and we just wait. And then maybe we send a follow-up email and then they disappear.
Yeah,
That's
scary,
why you get ghosted,
Nikki.
It's scary to set up that follow-up call because we're afraid to talk about the money. I just want to send it out and they say yes.
They won't say yes unless you talk about the money. It's hard. It's hard to earn somebody's business. And not even that you have to focus on the money piece. This was one of my favorite mentors of all time used to say, Nikki, most people are one question away from hiring you. So your job, people, is to give them the chance to ask you the question. If they never get the chance to ask the question, you never get the chance to earn the business. You have to review the proposal. And this idea of like, I'm a big believer in like, let's get rid of as much time suck in our business as possible, the things that just eat energy and time. And this idea of like, should I follow up today? Should I send an email? What should the email say? Is it too soon? Should I reference this? All that is time suck.
Totally.
Okay?
That is everyone's thought process. I can tell you right now, there's hundreds of thousands of people listening right now. And they're like, yep, that's me. Yep.
Yeah. I have hundreds of those people in my membership, right? Like this is the stuff that we talk about all the time too. So you schedule a circle back call on their calendar and on yours to review the proposal. So I'm going to send their proposal to you on Wednesday. Let's schedule a circle back call on Thursday to review it. How does 10 a.m. look on your schedule? Great. Let's get it on our calendars. Now I send the proposal. I don't have to think about it again until right before I get on the call with them. I don't have to worry about what I'm going to say. I don't have to prep a bunch of stuff. It's like, no, we're just going to review the proposal. I already know what's in it. I've got a copy in front of me. And more importantly, they will have taken time to look at the proposal before they get on that call with you, because they're going to want to be prepared too.
Yeah.
So now they've actually looked at your proposal. You have no guarantee when you send a proposal without a circle back call scheduled that they'll ever even open it and look at it. And you've spent so much time and energy putting together this beautiful proposal for them. Let's make sure they look at it.
It's so true. So many people are just so busy. It was a priority, but now something else has come up in my life and it's a priority. And I haven't even opened the PDF from Rebecca, not even thinking about Rebecca. Rebecca's over there sweating. Oh my God, they look at it. Oh my, I bet it's too much money. How come I haven't heard from them? Should we send an email? When should we follow up? Like, oh my God, the head, like the inner voices that go on. Yeah, that's really great advice. I love that. Okay, Nikki, I have had such an incredible conversation. I've loved all the wisdom you've shared today. Thank you for being on the podcast. Can you let all of our listeners know where they can find and follow you?
Yes. I'm going to wrap it in a gift for your listeners, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have an ebook. It's called Closing the Sale, and it kind of talks through some of the steps that we talked about today, gives you some language suggestion. It is about boosting your confidence in those conversations. So Closing the Sale, you can get that by going to yoursalesmaven, maven.com/resilient. So this is for your audience specifically. So yoursalesmaven.com/resilient. We will then be connected. And I have lots of tips and strategies. I have a podcast called Sales Maven that I invite you to listen to. And this will be an opportunity for us to connect. And you'll have something that you really can like dig into. It's a quick read, but it will absolutely change the way you're handling those calls.
Ooh, I can't wait to get my hands on that. That sounds amazing. I think you're going to get a lot of downloads of that one.
Thank you.
That's so great. Selling and sales has always been something that I have felt has held me back in some ways, even though people say to me, "Oh, you're so good at sales." I'm just passionate, but I don't feel comfortable selling things. And I think I speak for a lot of creatives and designers when I say that. And those people, they're in your realm. They are your clients. So I'm sure that you will get a lot of interest in learning even more from you from this conversation. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom today.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, wouldn't you agree that was so eye-opening? I mean, sales is certainly an area that I constantly feel like I fall short. It makes me uncomfortable quite often. And then as soon as I get to a level where I'm comfortable with a certain type of conversation with a client or selling, I kind of just sort of sit there and I'm in my rut and I don't expand. So now I'm feeling inspired, Nikki. So thank you for that, to actually make some change. I'm really hoping that some of those questions will become part of my regular vocabulary. Like, that was one of my biggest takeaways talking to Nikki, was how to frame your conversation in a discovery call using questions. So I hope you guys wrote that stuff down. I think it was so powerful. I'm definitely changing my discovery call script. And I also thought her advice about client questionnaires was really interesting. We just kind of stopped doing them at the beginning because we were like, it's just a lot of extra work. But now I see sort of, I'm going to say science for lack of a better term, but like the science behind it and how much it makes sense. It was a question that actually came up inside our designer's room about questionnaires and onboarding clients. And I thought, these ladies need to hear this episode with Nikki. And so now it's finally out into the world. And so everyone can learn from her wisdom. Anyhow, I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. Please, please, please go ahead and review this podcast. Let other people know that it exists. Please feel free to share it on social with your friends. And as always, send me a DM if this episode resonated with you. I love to hear from you guys. And because podcasts are not interactive, I don't know what's landing if you don't send me a message. All right, that's it. Have a great day, and I'll see you soon.